Well, hey guys, how you doing? Hope everybody's well. Hope everybody's had a great day. Today we're going to get into something a little vintage. It's Justin Weaver's S550 McCulloch. I had a few little short videos on it a while back. I just couldn't get it to tune at all, and it ended up the first thing I checked was the fuel line, and they have that little, it's like a sponge or a cloth strainer, and it was just petrified. We changed that out. I could get it to idle and tune good, and sitting on a bench run seemed just fine. That's why I don't believe in sending a saw out of my door unless I've had it in some form of a piece of wood to check its performance level. But when we put it in a piece of wood, it was still starving for fuel. So it has a Chinese Tillotson carburetor on it. I'm guessing either the screen and it's stopped up or just something's up with that carburetor. So guys, that's what we're going to get into today. Alright guys, see if we can get this carburetor off of this thing. Honestly, takes me longer to find wrenches and tools than it does in most cases to do the job. I have a big drawer full of wrenches, but when I say it's full of wrenches, that's what I mean. She's full of wrenches. I'll just be honest with you guys, that was, I don't think, pulled up anywhere near enough tight enough. Looks like the bolts and nuts got to getting hard to turn, and they just kind of hung it up. It is what it is. And our visitor's back in here again today. She's starting to become the shop cat. Alright, that one came out easy enough. I've already started on the back one, or the other. I realized I'm not videoing, and if you've not worked on one of these things, the bolts are right there and nuts in the open, where they are easy to see, and they are not the easiest things in the world to get out. It's one of them deals you're looking right at it, and it's still a daggone nightmare to get out. So a lot of people will not touch a McCulloch chainsaw, or any vintage for that matter. Me, I'm not scared. That's probably like watching paint dry. Like watching paint dry. If you drop that nut down, don't lose any sleep over it. It ain't going nowhere. There's a big tray there for all that to sit in. Choke lever. Super simple. Pull that back, it'll come right up out. That one kind of looks homemade. It probably is, honestly. Let's get the fuel line off. I had a zip tie up around it. That's fine. I've done that myself. It's supposed to have a little clamp on it. I bet my daughter just pulled in because the shepherd's wanting to bark. Wow. Guys, that was that dirt on my fingers came out of the fuel line. No joke. That's probably going to be a lot of it, getting things cleaned and getting a good flush on things. See if we can get this grommet just to push through. That is it, guys. On Chinese Tillotson HL off of the saw. Look at the throat on that. If you can get these things right, they'll perform. I've had thoughts of just trying to swap one onto something more modern, make an adapter. One of our, I can't call it a hot saw or a race saw. People get offended and leave dirty comments, but we'll put it on one of our hodgepodge hot rods. How about that? Okay guys, so maybe we can see the in-tank fuel filter hanging there. I've got you zoomed in. Should be able to see it pretty well how that works. Some of the 1010s have a set up like this, but it does seem to be soaked. But that is the filter that I'd put in it out of another line. Something I hadn't noticed. This line's kind of soft. It's cracked and broken up here. It just is what it is. I mean, this thing, it's 60 years old. It's a relic. It's lucky to be even running at all, but I believe we can get it to where he can get it out every now and then, and get it out and play with it, make some cuts with it. It's never going to be a go-to saw, I don't think. For production use, it's just too old. That's just my take on it, but like I said, I believe we can get it back to where, it's one of them drag it out every now and then, throw it in the rotation, just to feel nostalgic. Sometimes it's good to be a hoarder. I've actually got the main line that comes from the tank and goes around, but this one seems to still be in good shape. It just, that in-tank line, I don't know, something about it being cracked and busted up here, and it was like super soft. I just don't want to take any shortcuts in the fuel delivery system here. I've even got another, I dug this out of the shed. If I can get it down, you can see that. That's an OE Tilly carb. Who knows what the hell it was off of. That's one of those hodgepodge saws I'd put together 3 or 4 years ago just for fun, just to play with. We may do something with that, like with a custom intake or something later on, but right now I'm going to get this line back in the tank. And also, by the way, his line that was on it, just like it pulled off so easy. It's just where it's soft, I guess, but that's what we're going to do next. Alright guys, there's what that looks like in there. We're going to call it our newer line. It's far from new, but these saws were weird anyway. It goes from this big filter down to the small line, up into a big 1/4 inch barb that goes through the tank, and it runs 1/4 inch line out to the carburetors. You can see it shrinks back down here. What I've done in a lot of cases, and what a lot of other people do, I know, on these, is just get the 1/4 inch ID line and run the full size line from the tank over to the carburetor. You just kind of have to put a clamp on each end of it, but they kind of come with a little bitty, like a wire clamp on them from the factory anyway. And here's what that looks like. This is the extra line I have. I'm trying to remember. I think I bought a 250, one of the later model ones that already had all the fins and the cylinder chopped out of it, or the crankcase volume opened up, I guess. If you've dealt with these, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, it probably just confused the hell out of you, but you can see what I meant by a little clamp on the end of it. But I bought a 250. It's probably 3 or 4 years ago. It looked better than it was, we'll put it that way. When I got it here, it'd been dropped out of a tree, or probably run over by a dozer or a skidder or something, because it looked like this one. It looked like a low hour saw. Started, ran amazing. Maybe what that other carb was off of. There was no using it for anything but parts. It was just busted and beat to death. But I'm gonna get the line back in the tank, and maybe I'll bring you guys back when I've got the carb apart or something. we have it. That barb was pretty easy to get to. You can see it. You might have to shine a light, but you can see it just right in the corner of that tank. And we're just going to drop this down past the automatic oiler. If you've not seen one of these or dealt with one or any of the automatic saws of this series, if I can get it to go down through there. Sometimes stuff's a lot easier to do off camera. I don't know what it is. That line's wanting to roll up and ride up toward the top of the tank for some reason, but we're going to make it go where we want it to go. Alright, we're setting in good fresh fuel now, so we're going to put the cap back on. Loosely, I don't want to crank it down super tight because we could build pressure and go to leaking here, but these saws normally, and I know you guys have seen other YouTubers say it, if they've been sitting for more than a few days, in most cases, you're better off just give it a drink of something down the throat, or you can sit and pull your arm off before these things will pop and pull enough fuel to run. And I think 90% of that has to do with having a fuel line that's probably overall over a foot long before it reaches fuel, getting close to it. That sounds crazy, but if you take in consideration the few inches you have here and the few inches to the tank, and you know it's got to drop down in the tank pretty good before it submerges in fuel, that is a long way to pull fuel on a saw. If you had like an outbound impulse pump, you could pull straight off of crankcase pressure instead of the pump and the carb. I'm sure it'd pull fuel and work a lot better. There it is, guys, and all its glory. The mighty Tillotson HL, or China's finest version of it. I just wonder if that's one of those things we should watch what we're saying in the videos. That algorithm's tricky. It pick up a lot of stuff. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when you hear myself and others saying the algorithm, it's basically how YouTube determines what audience is going to watch your content you put out. And in my humble opinion, it does a piss poor job at it. Like each video I put out says it gets, I don't know, 5,000–6,000 impressions, which is not that great considering I have over 10,000 followers. That's another discussion for another day, but whose pages are those going on? I get a lot of comments I don't show you guys. Boy, my hands are shaky today. A lot of comments I don't show you guys. Like people will be like, why is YouTube showing me this? I've had several of you say that you have notifications turned on and that YouTube barely notifies you when I post a video. I ain't ranting or complaining, I'm just trying to talk while we pull these screws out, which is like watching paint dry. Most of these China or Chinese carbs on the Tillotsons have a plastic bowl on the bottom, and I have honestly seen some of the OE ones with the plastic bowl, and a lot of people get these things confused. They'll pull them apart and be like, oh no, the diaphragm's backwards, it's on the wrong side. It's not on the wrong side, it's just the way this carburetor is made. The pump chamber and the metering chamber is just all here on the bottom of it, and you know, that's what we've got. But that thing has dust and fines all in it. I guarantee you guys can see it and pick it up. And one soft ass diaphragm. So I don't know. you can probably see it. Just this thing's filthy. I'd say it was where it was ran with that original strainer. Tank could be full of trash too. I've not had a real good look at that, but the strainer setup we've got in it right now should catch anything big. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to disassemble into the carburetor. You honestly got to have special tools to change the needle seat in these. I used to have a socket I'd ground down to do it. The needle valve you can pull out and change like any other. But the seat that it sets in actually screws and threads in. It's what makes the old Tilly carburetors so awesome. You can, you know, I think they still make these things in production today, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure all of this is good and clean, make sure the screens and stuff are clean if I run into anything real noticeable. I'll let you guys know, and we'll throw it back together and see how it acts. Okay guys, so there is a certain way this spacer plate goes on, and if you ain't got it just right, it won't pulse. It may run, it may siphon enough off of the tank to run, but in the case of one of these old Tillys, I highly doubt it, being it be a reed saw. But the slotted section is going to go here. It lines up dead even with your pulse. You need to make sure your gasket's right. There's only one way it'll lay. And the reason there's not another gasket here is it's stuck to the saw, which is good and fine. I've taken a razor blade and channeled out slots to where we can utilize the slots that's on that. When I swing you back around, I may show you what I mean. Okay, maybe you can see those little slots right there. I've already got the bolts and nuts started in the carburetor. I'm kind of hoping that maybe we can get it to go in there without any issues. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. These lines are just, I don't know if somebody's homemade these or what, but they do not want to fit right, not the lines, but the linkage, it just does not want to fit right at all. I can almost promise you that the choke rod that's on this is homemade, because I've had so many of these saws here. I know what's right and what's wrong on them, but there's nothing wrong with making stuff. I'm not trying to say that. Sound kind of snobbish at all, or asshole-ish. Nothing wrong with that at all. You do what you gotta do. There it is, guys. Kind of sit back down in there. I'm not going to video tighten those nuts back down or sliding this hose on. Hopefully the next thing you guys see, I don't know if we got our choke linkage in right. Yes, it is. Just that easy to work. It's just where it's Chinese carburetor. But hopefully the next thing you guys see is this thing running. Hopefully we can maybe try to put it in a piece of wood. You guys see what I'm seeing there? I really, really, really wish I would have checked this thing out more when I had the carb off the first time. I put it back together and it was kind of the same old deal. So I went back into it. I was like, well, I've got this other carburetor here I know is good. We'll put it on it, and I probably still will, because this doesn't deserve to have a $10 Chinese carburetor on it or whatever they cost. But either the impulse is stopped completely up or it's blocked by that gasket. I'm gonna have to figure that out and bring you guys back. Alright guys, I got to poking around the pick and we've found the impulse hole. I really, really, really wish I would have checked that out to begin with, but whatever, it is what it is. I said I wouldn't, but I may just put his carb back on it. just to see what's up. It doesn't take long at all to pull these apart, but honestly, frankly, I don't even know how the hell the thing was running at all. Like I said, a lot of your modern saws, you know, if it's got a short fuel line, they'll feed a little bit, especially if you're choking them. But the jetting in those old Tillotsons is huge. You know, this is a big, huge old reed saw. They were meant to dump a lot of fuel through them, but yeah, hopefully, I about almost guarantee that fixes it. It was just, you know, someone had put new gaskets on it and just, they didn't get their gasket placement right, which is, you know, it's no big deal, or either they didn't know that there's two different gaskets on these. You have a gasket for the manifold side of the spacer, and then you have one for the carb side of the spacer, but really wish I would have noticed that. Alrighty guys, it will actually start for me without a prime nail, without pulling my guts out at that. Carbs tuning, which the impulse on it was completely blocked off. I'm assuming it was just sucking past the venturi and, you know, pulsing a little bit. That's how these pulse anyway. You know, at the end of the day, it's a reed saw, but I've got it pretty close, but it's dark out, really dang cold. It's probably about as far as we're going to get with it tonight. Still just ain't a fan of that aftermarket carburetor. I'll probably tinker with it in a day or two, put it in a piece of wood and see if it'll actually make a cut now, but I think we're going to end up with this on it. It is a smaller carb, but it's actually what would have came on it. That's actually an 090 carburetor. But yeah, Justin, that was... There's a hodgepodge of little things that I've found, but we're getting there, man. So he'd had worries that maybe it was a crank seal. The fella that he had got the saw from had originally, I think, put one in the clutch side. But guys, I've got these things here on the shelf behind me that were made in the late 50s, and they've never had a crank seal put in them that I know of. And that's the deal with the Tillotson carb and the reeds and everything. Tolerances weren't that great back then, so, you know, their deal was just to flood them to death with fuel, and, you know, you could tune around minuscule air leaks. My old 300 that saw was locked up when I got it. I've got a 1-70 here that was made in like 58 or 59. I can feel it up right now, and it fires right up, and I don't think the saw's ever been apart, but they don't make things like they used to. Anyway, you know, I don't think there's a seal issue. These actually have two seals on the flywheel side. One was like a dust seal, and then the other was your oil seal, but they're both basically oil seals. But man, I think we're on the right path now. I'll chop and edit this, but I'll leave most of it in just to show you guys what we deal with when dealing with these old vintage saws. A lot of people don't show that. I've been bad for not showing it myself, but yeah, guys, thank you for watching. Everybody have a great day.